So, welcome to this second Studies Expert webinar show, and I've invited Eckhard Böhme. A few words to him a little bit later. Today's topic is building better customer profiles and avoid common pitfalls. And we have a lot of issues to cover, so we're going to do it on a pretty fast basis. We are open for questions. I think it'll be better if we have them at end, but depending on the situation, we'll see how it goes.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
So, what's the next slide?
Then I'll take it from here. Well, before I get started and show the agenda, I want to welcome everybody again to this session. I want to thank Miko and the Study Store, especially for hosting this session. Thank you for attending. It's really exciting to see so many people who are eager to improve their skills, who are really interested in getting into how to build better value propositions. I will share during this session what I've learned over the last, I would say, 4 to 5 years. I first discovered the value proposition concept from Alexander Osterwalder during a class in 2016. And since then, I've really started to focus on the jobs to be done discipline, which caught my attention at that time. And I have done literally dozens and dozens and dozens of customer interviews. So you will learn, hopefully, from my kind of years of experience, not only building great value propositions, but first and foremost, doing the work. So trying to get as many interviews under my belt as possible, but also improving the process. And that has been a very, very important aspect of honing the skills of getting better in creating customer profiles. And also, finally, we built some tools. And when you build tools, you really have to think it through and understand what you're doing. So I'm really happy to share my best practices. As Mika said, we're going to take questions at the end. But if you have an urge, and use the chat. Right in your question, I'm sure Miko can monitor that during my session, and I can address it then. The session will be recorded, so if you miss part of it, which would be unfortunate, of course, you can play it back. I think in a few days we'll have the recording. We have a very tight program. Since I packed everything kind of I know about value propositions and customer profiles specifically in this 1 hour. So let's take a look at the agenda for tonight. We're gonna start.
Sorry, Eckhard. Before you go ahead with that, let me, because I was thinking, what were really the reasons why I wanted to have you on this show and why I'm so excited to have you there. So I'd like to, and I came up to the 5 points. So I would just quickly like to tell everybody why I'm so happy to have you here. And the first one is that I like clear processes, user-friendly frameworks, and tools. The second is in my own business at studies.com. I have always suffered using personas. We will touch that a little bit later as well. As a third, we love business model canvas and value proposition canvas, and we really believe these tools should be part of every business. And like the wheel of progress that we will see later on is kind of an add-on to the value proposition canvas. The fourth issue is understanding what customers really want and need. And I found that is not as easy as it sounds like. And as fifth, it's a tool that will guide us through a framework to a conversation and enable a common language. So those were the kind of 5 things that I came up with why this is so important, this issue, and I'm so happy to have you here. So go ahead.
Really appreciate it. Thank you, Miko. These are certainly great points. So we're gonna start and look at the value proposition that support the customer journey. I know lots of folks use value propositions primarily to create product or services, but there are some other uses that you really can deploy the concept of value proposition to help customers. And then after we have done looked at kind of how can we use value propositions in general, we look at creating customer profiles with clarity, validity, clarity, and impact. These are three of the qualitative criteria I apply in my daily work to really ensure that we create meaningful, strong, exciting value propositions. And it's kind of garbage in, garbage out. So I hope there are going to be some insights that help you really make a difference. Then we look at an application example. So how have we used great customer research, creating great customer profiles to change messaging? And then we also look like as a bonus at understanding the job context. There are some additional things that we look for in interviews that help us to enhance customer jobs, the pains and the gains. So we'll figure out what are these examples. And then let's take a look at the customer-centric strategy development, because I believe there's a higher purpose why we are creating value propositions. And we want to take a look at what that means and how a process looks like that creates that customer-centric strategy development. And then we're going to have a Q&A. So without further ado, let's move on. Maybe some quick words about myself. I've been doing, as I said, Jobs to be Done since 2017, really focused on that, understanding what it means, but also building tools and a process and a whole method behind it. I also served as a subject matter expert for Competing Against Luck, the book written by Clayton Christensen and his colleagues about Jobs to be Done. I translated the Jobs to be Done card deck. I work as a consultant and also as an educator. I also developed, as Miko said, co-developed the Wheel of Progress and developed the customer progress design method. Okay, so that's enough about myself. Let's take a look at the value proposition canvas. I'm sure you have seen this. You may have worked with it. Kind of a quick run through what it really means. It has two parts. On the right-hand side, there's a customer profile. That is the main subject of today's discussion. This is where we define what customers need with the pains, the gains, and the customer jobs. On the left-hand side, we have the value map, which represents the product or the service that should match the customer jobs, pains, and gains. And it should look like this. So we have in yellow customer jobs, in green the gains, and red the pains. And then we have the same on but in yellow what is the product or the service matching the customer job, and in green what are the pain reliefs and what are the great gain creators at top. And it should not look like this, where we have a mismatch. So we have a product that doesn't match the customer job. We have pains that are not really resolved by the product. We have gain creators that create very different gains than what the customer is looking for. So what we want to achieve, of course, is something like this. We want what we also call, it's a product problem fit, right? We want to match up whatever we offer as a business to solve the customer issue, to help them to complete a job. This is how it looks like, and we're going to focus on the right-hand side, as I said. So the first insight I want to convey is there's something like a cycle of progress. Some people call it maybe customer journey, but I don't like that term because I think it doesn't really represent what it is. But there's a cycle that people go through when they want to buy a new product, when they need a new solution. It's not like they wake up and run straight to Google and search and then go to the shop and buy it. It's more complicated. It really starts with the first thought. The solution that I have in place no longer works. Then people have something like the passive search. So they're not actively search, they walk around and they're pondering about the issue. Maybe they're open, looking around what could be possible solutions, but they do not actively search. And then typically something happens. We call this the first event. So it makes people think. now I need a solution. Now I go into an active search. I look around, and this is the first instance where we can create value. We can create a value proposition for people in the active search phase. Company that is doing this kind of, we all know that it's Google. You go to Google to explore the solution space, right? Hopefully you know what the search term, the right to search term, but it's like, well, you start somewhere. And yeah, Google, that's like the first address that we go to. Finding the right solution space. And then after we have explored something, we know, okay, I want something like this product that I've seen. Then usually some second event takes place that creates either more stress, so more pressure, more push, or it creates kind of, now I'm ready to explore real products, real options. And then you go in the trade-off phase where you compare products. A great company that helps doing this is Idealo. That's from, I think that's a German site, where you can compare products, right? You can look at the kind of the features, the prices, and shipping options and stuff like that. And of course, you as a company, you can also create things that create the right promise, right? On your website, on what kind of offers do you create? Objection handling. It's like people really kind of like what you do, and you help them to make the right decision. So you do not overpromise, but also you do not underpromise. You communicate the product, so it's really effective. And then you hire, that's jobs to be done terminology, we hire a product, so which means we either buy something, or in some cases we create solutions ourselves, do it yourself, so to speak, and then they move into the experience phase. Of course, this is where I would say, I don't know, 80-90% of the value proposition gets created, either for a new product or a new service, right? Great experience, a great example for the experience phase, of course, is Apple with the right utility of the product. When they came up with the iPhone in 2008, it's like, wow, this is great utility. I can do things I've never been able to do before. So this completes the cycle of progress. And I want to really make sure you think about the entire cycle and not only the product use phase or experience phase in this example. So now let's move on to the core of our presentation, is how to create great customer profiles. And I came up with, I think, mutually exclusive criteria for quality. But before we go into that, I want you to write in the chat box, how do you find out today what customers want? Do you do primary research like interviews? Do you do focus groups? How go you about that? Maybe desk research. So please write in the chat box what they're using today. Miko calls them and asks. Great.
There's no wrong and right answers, just
no,
tell what you're doing.
Analysis surveys, right? Primary research, talk to people, find the relevant users, let them give you references. Yeah, great. Semi-structured interviews, nice. I like that aspect of structure. Assumptions are great for getting started. Interviews, hopefully some data analytics from previous actions. Okay.
Good input.
All right.
Good input. Wow.
Excellent. Great. Excellent. These are great points. I think they all lead to insights. So let's take a look at some specific things that we can do to create strong customer profiles. So the three quality areas in my mind are the valid data, so created data. So do not look at the things that you put on the canvas as just steady notes with notes on it. No, I'd like you to think about this as data as hard as possible. It's not about filling the canvas, it's creating evidence and documenting that evidence on the customer profile. The second aspect is phrase items clearly. And I've seen this many, many times when people kind of write on the steady notes, or they write like in an electronic format. It's like you don't know in 3 weeks what people are talking about. When you look back as wow, it was not very clear. It was not. What was it? A pain? Was it a gain? What kind of job did people really have? We don't know that sometimes if it's not clear. And the third point is creating items, creating customer profiles with impact. So you can create great customer profiles with valid data, clearly phrased, but they're not very meaningful, not meaningful to the customer, and there's a particular way that to find out what are the jobs, the customer jobs, people struggle most, people care most about. And these are the jobs that we should take on and apply for as a business. So creating valid data, how do we do it? First of all, talk to people, talk to customers. And these days, sometimes I think people try to do anything to avoid talking to customers. I don't know for what reasons. They are afraid. They love to use data. They do surveys and all kinds of stuff, but they are afraid to talking to people. They're afraid of doing interviews. And this is very sad, because only through a two-way communication, I think you can find out really kind of the deep insights that you need to make great choices. So we always talk to customers. There's always someone who gets interviewed, and we do it the normal jobs done interview way. So we talk about the story of people buying a product or a service, and really scan the whole process from the first thought to today's experience with the product. And I think what's really important here is not just doing interviews or having a conversation. It is asking the right things, asking the things that you're searching for, and then listen. Everybody in the industry is talking about the right questions. There are tons of books how to write questions. This is only one side of the medal. The other side of the coin is listen for specific items. We'll talk a little bit later about what those items could be. But this is very important, not just having a conversation, purposely looking for certain things. The second aspect is a targeted sample. And what I mean by that is when you choose the people that you want to talk to, your interviewees, you really should think about prior, who do I invite? And in this example, it's like maybe you start with, hey, we want to interview people about dropping the kids off at school or at kindergarten or whatsoever. Like, yeah, we're gonna talk to the mom. Yeah, mothers only. Like, bad idea. There are some other people who do drop-offs. The father, maybe the dad, maybe the grandparents, maybe other relatives. So why only focus on moms, right? Doesn't make sense. But also, you don't want to talk to just one mom. You want to talk to different. So you have that matrix of people. You have some breadth and you have some depth. So you need diversity, of course, and you need more than one person you want to talk to get a little bit more or get more valid data, right? So in this case, perhaps we would do, let's say, 9 interviews, right? With 3 different kinds of demographics, and then like 3 people each demographic group. And we have like 9. So the next item is also something I see not happening too often, is to generalize items that we find. And I think because people think, when I do, let's say I do 5 interviews, so how do I bring them together? Well, it's only possible in my mind when you break it down into the items that I talked about. So when you itemize the interview, then you can combine the items. So in terms of jobs, you hear different jobs from different people, and you bring them together to generalize the point and make the job valid, or the pain or the gain in this case. So an example how we do this is, this is not from the value proposition canvas, but from our own research. It's an example of events. We're going to talk a little bit later about the items that we look in addition to jobs, pains, and gains. In this case, it's like events, and you can see beginning signs of dementia. And they can have different expressions in the interviews that you lead. And like here, loss of short-term memory. You notice that your loved one is forgetting easy things, or they miss appointments, or, you know, the doctor tells you, well, I did the test and the memory is going somehow. So how do you bring those together? You just generalize the item. You can see this in the square box, how we generalize items. So this is important because you want to create data out of single data points. And then we have coherent customer profiles. And I'm going to show an example that I pulled from the internet. So I recreated it. It's not 100%, it's not a screenshot or not an image, but I recreated it. What you can see is, first of all, when you look at the customer jobs, they're not clearly written, right? It's like a beginner mistake, right? They almost look like alike, the jobs, pains, and gains. Is not. But if you take these as jobs, there are some gains and some pains that are clearly orphans. They don't match with the job. And I see this sometimes with people working, that they have jobs and then they have, after the analysis, pains and gains that are not associated with the job. So then leave them out. Don't put them on the customer profile. Do we have any questions yet? Or is that good? No, okay. Seems like there are no questions. All right, let's take a look at the next item. After coherent customer profiles, my strong recommendation is not doing this, using personas that, because personas are no data, right? Unless you use data to create personas, but then you have like a cluster, and we don't know how valid a cluster is. But if you have like jobs associated with their pains and gains, and these insights come from data, then I would trust them. But like a persona in and of itself is not an explanation. It's not, there's no evidence without any data. So we would be very kind of cautious. Plus you're stereotyping, right? You say, okay, this mom is like this and has these pains and these gains. You don't know unless you have done the research. Then last point is also like hearsay. Well, hearsay, you certainly can use hearsay and assumptions when building your hypothesis, but don't use them in production. Don't use them as evidence, or if you use them, make a big H before you write the statement and tell people it's a hypothesis, it's not tested, I don't know, just had the thought. So this is creating valid data. So doing the research, getting evidence in place, and well, you can have great data, but you can also not create them very clearly. So right in the chat box, I'm going to show you an example in a few seconds of a customer profile that I found also on the internet. What do you like and what you don't like about this? I'm going to populate it. So it's your chance to criticize it now.
And the case is about it's visiting a bar. You want to go there and have a drink, basically.
Right. So customer jobs, as far as I can read this, stay hydrated, have a drink, chill out. Gain is a card payment, speedy service, stock the drink I want. Pains are moving from my table, speaking to people, asking what ciders do you have. How useful would this be for creating a product or a service?
Feel free to comment what you think is irrelevant, or what's relevant, or what's good or bad. That's the idea. Anything will do. There's deliberately quite a few issues
Yes.
in this sample. So okay, good steps, but probably not enough. Are they valid? Functional and emotional jobs are mixed.
Yes.
Okay, good feedback. Believe the jobs are very different. Might be better to separate those.
Yeah. It's not very relevant.
Yeah, what about comfort?
Yeah. Also, you may notice when that individual wrote it down, it's all in red ink, right? It's all visually, it's not very appealing, I would say. Exactly, what kind of drinks? So lots of things obviously missing or not connected, like card payments. Why is it a gain? I mean, what does it really shine through this statement why card payments is a gain? Yeah. Why is it a pain speaking to people? We don't know that. So when you look, and maybe after the interview you can remember what you put down there, but in 3 weeks you look at the statements and ask yourself, I don't remember. I don't remember what I wrote down. That would be very unfortunate because you spent money and time creating this.
So Wolfram, like mentioned, speaking to people might be a job. It's like you want to socialize. So
could be, exactly.
So it's much better as a job, actually, socialize and talk to the people.
Yeah.
if it's creating you a pain when you have to speak to people, maybe you're not in the right place. But
exactly. So let's take a look at the how we can create more clear statements. So there are some general hygiene, I would call them hygiene criteria, which is there should be no room for interpretation. Of course, it's very ambitious, right? But try to create these statements as clearly as possible. Also capture the essential information, and that's always a question: is that too little information? Is that too much information? It should be as much information as needed and not more, right? To explain what it is. Sometimes you need to think about it a little bit more, or you need to rephrase it when you look after 10 minutes again, and it'll say, okay, no, I want to make some adjustments. That's not bad at all, but you create data which is an asset for your company. It should be as clear as possible. Also, of course, legible. It should be legible when handwriting. In the last workshop, I had someone who had such a great handwriting. We used him for the whole 3 days. There was no other person taking notes. It was like printed. And then we want to have a consistent kind of look and feel. So we use a color code. It should be neat. I've seen overlapping studies and like distributed wildly and outside. And I mean, it doesn't look like, and for the brain, it's more work if it doesn't look very neat. Also, I recommend, of course, using steady notes. When you work with the paper canvas on the wall, it's much better than using Post-its that are sticky, and it's not a good experience. But the steady notes you can easily move, and you can write on them perfectly, and so we really recommend that. Also, you can use some supporting visuals, especially great for visual storytelling when you have maybe a customer job, and then you can maybe you put a face on it with someone drinking a glass of wine or something. So to make it also visible what the job may look like. And then, of course, we recommend not to write on the canvas. It happens, especially with beginners, so I always remind people. So these are some general hygiene items. Let's now look at customer jobs in particular. So how can we create better job statements is the first question. So first, we should be aware what we are looking for. People want to get something done. So we could use this statement like, help me, as like a leading statement is help me do something to help to really check, is that the right phrasing that we put on the steady note, and that really works perfectly. And then, of course, we want to create hiring and post-hiring jobs, as we have seen at the beginning. And then the question is, how many jobs should I put on a customer profile? And it really depends on how you want to do it. But when you have like a job map like this, and this is from a study we did with about finding a care solution for someone. We have this job map, and then you can select either, well, I use a whole cluster, like in this case, preserve the physical health of my relative, right? Then you just take the top statement, and that means that everything, so all statements below who are in the cluster are also mentioned. Or you pick one of those, like making sure that does not get hydrated. If that's a customer job, people not getting hydrated, that's fine as well. But you have to make a decision. You want to apply for this whole cluster or for single jobs, and then you can put those accordingly on the customer profile. What I would not recommend is mixing independent jobs. So jobs that have nothing to do with each other. They are not from the same cluster, because that can be very confusing. It's fine if you do it when you collect the items, but when you do the analysis, I would always use a separate customer profile for a different job or job cluster. So next quality item is about clarity for pains and gains. There are also some tips and tricks we can apply, which is the first one. It's very obvious, but people make the mistake. Pains and gains should have positive and negative connotations. Like, is it a positive thing or a negative thought or feeling, right? So in green, this is clearly it's a benefit. In red, this is a pain. And if that item does not meet this test, then it's neutral, it's confusing, I need to revise it. Next point is determine if it's a gain. Is it a pain or is it a gain? And sometimes it's not very clear. You may have noticed that. And sometimes it feels like a contradiction. But whenever possible, try to determine if it's a pain or a gain. In this case, we have like two different items. One is a pain and one is a gain. So pain is the caregivers, they don't perform, or the caregivers perform. So it really depends on how the interviewee meant it. Did they mean it as, well, there was really a pain because I didn't perform, or was it maybe a relief? Oh, the caregivers perform. So would be like a gain because they had maybe a bad experience in the past and they were happy that they performed. Maybe it was both in one interview because I told this whole story. But you need to really actively think about what do you want to put on the customer profile. Was it meant to be a pain or a gain? Then in terms of gains, there are different kinds of gains. It could be expected, like your promise when you sold the product or when the customer bought the product. Could be unexpected, or it could be a potential gain. Sometimes people talk about, oh, it would be nice if your product could do this and that. And then you know, oh, that's interesting. Maybe that is something for the next version of the product, like potential gains. In the pains area, there are also some expected pains. When they consider a product, they know, okay, this has some disadvantages, but also could have some unexpected pains. So you have to think about how to mitigate that. Maybe for the next version of the product, you can mitigate the pain by just being aware, hey, that's a thing that is like on the mind of many people, but really avoid neutral statements and also avoid duplicates. So the inversion of each other, if you did not hear it in the product, because it can be really confusing if you don't know, was it a pain or a gain? So last point of quality is impact. And I guess that's, I mean, all three are very important, but that's the one that really matters at the end of the day, which is how you get the data and how you choose, how you make the right decisions, what to apply for. So I think there's no way how you can make a good decision on customer jobs to apply for if you have not done the research, if you did not research the landscape of jobs, because then you pick maybe one that is very obvious in your mind. Wow, that's interesting. I want to apply for this job, but you miss maybe another one that is even much more important, or they belong together and you're missing that. So always have a kind of a view of the whole landscape. My recommendation really is to create a job map like this, where you have hiring jobs, where you have post-hiring jobs, and the lower you go in the hierarchy, it becomes more a task, and the higher you get is kind of more an outcome. What do I want to accomplish? What's really useful is also trying to reframe the job, because customers in interviews, they don't tell you exactly what the outcome is they were expecting. They talk maybe at the task level, but they really don't talk about, I want to ensure my relative has a life and dignity during the last phase of life. They don't tell you that, but you can read it from the data. And then determine the job importance and make like a rank order. What are the most important jobs for the customers? Which are the most, the best jobs that we can take on as a company with the most potential? And then what are the least ones, right? And what we do, we follow Alexander Osterwalder's strategizer's advice. We use the same benefit analysis with 4 criteria: importance, tangibility, satisfaction, is it lucrative, and then we build the total, which is the value of this customer job, and then we just stack rank them. But make a prioritization. I think that's very important. Just don't kind of pick it what you like or unsystematically, I would say. So at least you have when you have that order of customer jobs, you have something to discuss. Are these the jobs that at the top that really feel they would add the most value to our company and to the customer, or are there other jobs? And you should revisit how you rated the customer jobs. So now we are through. We had these 3 criteria: creating data, creating clarity in what we put on the customer profile, and we have making the right choices. So creating the greatest impact for our customers and ourselves. And now I want to show you an application example after we did one interview as an exercise with the buyer of a cargo bike. And when you think about cargo bike, it's not just hauling like stuff like flowers from your garden or what. It's also used for, of course, for kids, transporting kids. There are some people here in the audience that have seen this case study before. But what we did is, after we did one interview, there was one job that we discovered, which was to manage multiple drop-offs in one day. So there's a mom, there's a whole family of 5, and this mom, she had the job to drop off the kids at school, at kindergarten, at swimming lessons, to friends, judo lessons, whatsoever. The whole day. She was just driving around like crazy. This was a customer job. And the pains, of course, were like being late, because with the little kids, sometimes difficult to get them in the stroller and to follow and to get ready. And huge pain, also very stressful, also fear of accident. Before she had the cargo bike, there were 2 kids, there were siblings in a stroller. The older one was kind of going on herself, but she only had her hands on the stroller. And when they went to school, she was afraid that the other one was running on the street and getting in an accident. But after she bought the cargo bike, she was really a happy camper. So the gains were, well, we have one device for different purposes. I can bring the kids to school, drop them off. I can make grocery shopping. I can haul stuff from our garden to the utility and drop it off. It was much easier parking them with a car, and then also spending less time serving multiple locations. So she had much more time for herself during the day. And with this knowledge, just from one interview, we did something to the website. So Babui is a manufacturer of this vehicle that was bought during in the interview, and they have really a great website. I have to say that it's nicely done. They have a background video with the mom showing kind of early morning situation with the kids, and the kids are excited to get into the cargo bike and everything. But we thought the claim, the marketing slogan on the website was rather weak, like the cargo bike for everyone. I thought it's not very telling. It's true, right? Because there are so many users for cargo bike. So we suggested something else. We said, okay, we think it's more like the cargo bike for making daily routines fun, which speaks to, hey, it's not about transport. It's not about only the function. It's about the emotion. It's about having a better life. It's improving life. That was the story behind.
It's also like if you talk about everyone, that's kind of a persona. It's not one persona, but it's like every persona. And the making daily routines fun is kind of doing the job, getting the job done.
Right.
That's a good example of that.
Exactly. So that was kind of an easy example how you can use great customer profiles and create evidence, create insights that help you to improve messaging. Of course, there are many more users. So what I want to do next is, we have the customer profile, we have customer jobs, we have pains, we have gains. But is there any more data that we can look for to enhance our understanding of the customer job? Because we know customer jobs are not happening in a vacuum. They always happen in a context. So there are more data items that we look, customer interviews, which I want to show next. These are 12 elements.
We have 15 minutes left, so please try to, if possible, try to speed up a little bit.
I'll go quickly. So at the core, we use customer jobs, pains, and gains. These are 3 of the items we are looking for. And then we said, okay, we need some context. And context could be anything. The wall is blue, the wall is green, the wall is gray. Really doesn't matter. So there could be like a gazillion of scenarios and situations. Say, well, how do you harness that complexity of data? And we said, okay, we look at 3 things. We look at events. So the events that I showed you at the beginning, first thought, first event, second event, and so on. And then we look at constraints. And constraints is really nice to look at because they're not emotional. They're like physical things. They are like, it could be a law, it could be a time window during the day where you can make a choice to upgrade. It could be a physical thing like a disability. It could be a financial situation, whatsoever. Things that are in the way of making progress. Or why can you could upgrade, but there are some things that limit you from it, and you can wonderfully work with this data. Also solutions. We look at all the solutions people are deploying. So we know the cargo bike is not the only one thing. They still have a car. They have the little ones have bikes and trikes and things like that. So we collect all the data, what solutions are people using, to get a better understanding of the landscape of jobs. And then we have some psychology as well. We look at forces and desires. On the right-hand side, without going too much into detail, we have the forces and the desires that help you move forward to a new situation, buying something new, deploying something new. On the left-hand side, we have habits and anxieties and also things to avoid that hold you back. It's like a rubber band, right? I want to move forward, but there are some concerns and things I like in my comfort zone that hold you back. These are 12 items in total: 3 customer job pains and gains, 3 context items, and 6 on the outside, which are like the motivators and demotivators. And these are the things that we look at. Now, I want to introduce you. That's kind of the marketing part that's coming, that you need to endure, because I want to give you a kind of a bigger perspective of where I think this creating value propositions really fits in, which is it's a strategic task. It's it's part of creating a customer-centric strategy. Nobody talks these days very much about strategy anymore, but it's a little bit unfortunate, because creating a strategy, if you do it the right way, if you put the customer in the center, is quite easy. It's not that complicated. There are books writing about strategy. There are, wow, dozens and dozens of pages. In reality, when you really put customers and their customer jobs at the center, I believe it is much, much easier. So we created, after years of working with the Wheel of Progress, that's our canvas, we created a method called the Customer Progress Design. And simply put, we start with the cycle of progress. You have seen this, people going through cycles at the beginning. Then we do interviews. We look for these 12 elements. We don't look for anything else. This is all we look for. Anything else is noise to us. And we capture that in on the wheel of progress. So we can do it in real time. So when the interview is going, with people populating the wheel of progress in the background, and then we just revise it right after. And after 2 hours, let's say, we have a completely evaluated interview. We have the single data points on here. And then we use the data in the last step to put it onto a canvas where we create strategy. So creating strategy in our mind is designing things that help people go through, make progress, go through the whole cycle in each and every phase. Ideally, we touch like the awareness, the passive, the active search, then trade-off, and the product itself, of course. It depends on our business model, but we can, in general, we can do all of these things. So we make strategic decisions or strategic choices. On the board, we built a template on a mural board. It looks like this, where actually we have 5 steps, starting with determining the project scope. And when I showed you the slide with how to choose for your customer interviews, the breadth and the depth, that's exactly what we do here. It's like we document our hypothesis about what we think the jobs are and some other items, and then we plan who we want to interview. We build the interview pool, we schedule the interviews, and then we do, in the next step, we conduct the interviews. And you can see 6 wheels of progress, which means in this case we did 6 interviews. Then we consolidate the items. Also, one of the quality points about creating valid data is we generalize these items. Each and every of the 12 items gets generalized. And then we can see already patterns. There are items that have lots of flavors, lots of expressions. We can see there is something. So in the next step, as I said, prioritizing also the items is very important because you want to make choices, and then putting them all in the last canvas, develop a strategy, making strategic choices, if you will. So if you are interested in this, deploying this, of course, I have a business and I have offers. I can help people to apply this type of method to create a customer-centric strategy. And it starts with kind of learning from observing. It's like doing an interview together. I would be the lead, you would be observing 3 hours engagement and then evaluating it on a wheel of progress. It's a very narrow, let's say, task. But nevertheless, yeah, people can learn a lot of that. To take it to the next level, it's like acquiring the skills. There's an offer, learn and research. Then I can do outsource. So there are some companies that I don't want to do this stuff. I don't want to talk to customers. So Eckhart, please do it. So I can do it. I call this higher end results. Also can customize any kind of research project that are kind of apart from the standard offers. And I also offer practitioner certification. It's not announced yet, but there's one person I already certified who went through the process, who did the work from the first step is like building the hypothesis to doing the interviews, evaluating the interviews, aggregating, and doing the strategy work. I'm very excited about this piece. And here, just to show you the learning resources we use in the workshop. So usually it's like it's very hands-on, doing interviews, evaluating, I mean, going basically through the whole process. There's a 40-page handbook, there's interview cards, there's all kinds of stuff to help people to acquire the skills. So with that, that was my kind of my marketing part. If you're interested, if you want to explore any of the offers, I do have a website, uniprosolutions.com, in German and English, where I talk more about the method and the offers and so on. So I see we are almost on time. We reserved 10 minutes for Q&A. So if you have any questions, also if you want to speak on the phone or into the microphone, you can do that as well. Then just click on the speak button on the right-hand side.
I have noted few questions here, so which we could try go quickly through. Hopefully I picked up let's try them real quickly. I post them again, so that's the easiest way for you. You can actually read it at the same time. So Rafael was asking, do you suggest to do this through brainstorming, the impact analysis?
You mean the
was pretty much in the beginning.
Is that the prioritization, or what exactly do you mean, the impact analysis?
He had some questions in the section where you were talking about the impacts.
The impact.
There were the three criterias.
Brainstorming in terms of creating. I mean, it's a creative process to create solutions or
prioritization.
So with the prioritization part, what I usually do is having, when there are like, let's say you have like 8 people in the room, I create 2 groups, right? And both independently do the rating. They need to come up with 1 rating per item according to the 4 criteria per customer job. And of course, there's some brainstorming, there's some creative process going on to discuss what this could mean to people. So that's the most important job, is in the whole process, is making the process transparent and involve people. So make it a collaborative process at every stage. So that's super important.
So you're saying Rafael is asking brainstorming to source all the potential inputs.
Yeah, that is right. If you mean that, that would be right. The first step is like where you build the hypothesis. I couldn't show it because there's no time. I can do it in a one-on-one demo or demo for the group. I can show you it's a very dedicated process to do the brainstorming. You can even prepare it, right? What are our hypotheses? You can read the journals, you can read the internet, and bring that knowledge to the first session where we do the scoping of the project. Because if you don't scope it in the right way, you may not discover the jobs that are really interested in. So that would be the part where we use a lot of the brainstorming as well.
So Gary is asking what is the difference between the 6 forces desires and the 4 forces? 6 forces desires?
So that's a good question. The best way to explain it would be through the process, which is also documented on the Wheel of Progress. The 4 forces that you know from Bob Mester, other people talking about it, these are baked in. But we have also a phase where people make up their mind, right? So after they realize I need to actively search for a solution, they make up their mind. What do I want? For example, when you know, okay, I want to move into a new home. So you do some research and you build what's your dream solution. It should be a home that has a garden, that is it's not noisy, it's for the kids, it's not far to school, and you make up your mind. That can be motivating, right? But there are also things that you're maybe afraid of. You don't know the solution yet, but you think, oh my God, that's gonna be too expensive, or I don't like the, I don't know, something associated with that possibly new solution. So that these are the 2 points that or the 2 things we don't call them forces, but we know they motivate you, or they can demotivate you, because if you're afraid something may happen, then you may be stuck in the process, right? You never exit the search phase.
So Daniel is asking now, why do we need customer profiles? And that was the same question we had already earlier, where Omiros was asking, maybe not the right timing, but does it make sense to have a customer profile for each persona and customer segment? I posed that one as well. So
yeah, so to answer Daniel's question, we try to be compatible with the value proposition canvas. That's a tool that everybody knows, or not everybody, but lots of people knows that, lots of people work with it. It's part of the business model canvas. So to us, it was like very natural. And to be frank, it's a great tool. I think it makes sense to show it in this way, because when we look at helping people to make progress, we have the additional 8 data items, 11 of the 12 items we use in the last canvas. We also use like the aspirational things, so the desires for progress. We use the things to avoid in the last canvas to inform decisions. So it's a much more holistic picture than just a customer profiles with jobs, pains, and gains. So sorry, the other question?
It's at the top, yeah. So does it make sense to have a customer profile for each persona or customer segment?
Well, it depends. So first of all, it's a typically consultant answer, it depends. But I personally no longer use personas, to be honest. The only thing I'm really interested in is the customer profiles. And because I want to apply for jobs, I don't want to apply to appeal to a persona, right? Because I know if I try to appeal to personas, I may miss audiences that I'm not aware of that have the job. Like in the example that I show, if I really concentrate on that persona, then first of all, I need to ensure it's based on data. if it's, you can create customer profiles and then put a label on it and say, okay, this is Jill, 23-year-old mom, single mom with 2 kids. Yeah, you can do that, of course. But then you apply for the data for her job, right? So it's
it would be like in the cargo bike case, you forget everybody else there. It might be the dad taking the kids there, might be the grandma taking them, or the whoever is taking care of the children. So you miss a lot, right? If you focus on one persona, the risk is really high. So
it's 6 o'clock. I can stay a little longer if people want to have more questions.
If anybody wants to leave and you have a next commitment, feel free to go. And like I posted earlier, I posted again. Would be great if you would just it takes only a few minutes. There's few questions I've added to a link, so if you could go and check them, and most of them are just choices. You don't have to write anything, but there is few questions. You can also write something. So I think we could do another half hour easy, right? But it's too long. So 1 hour is, I think, good enough. Good for now.
Was this helpful?
If people feel that you would like to see a real demo case, what how it's done and what kind of results came out and all of that, we were thinking, should we offer a second session? But so write to us now or later if you're interested, and we shall see what we could do. And I'm really happy to have. I mean, I've run through this. I can say from my own experience, I've run to a training that Eckhart has done. I was actually in one of the photos you showed at the last part. And for me, it's kind of like often I say, hey, trust the process. It's important, somebody has figured out a good framework, a good way to do it. And when we are through in our workshop, like 3/4 of the session, it started making clicks in my mind, and I remember that, and it's hey, now I get it, and that was really nice experience at that time.
Thank you, Mikko.
So Rafael says he's interested. We could get back to him. We have your email address, and can get back to you. So I like to take now we are 3 minutes past. I think it's time to close it. And so thank you very much, Eckhart. It was a great session, great information, and I hope that everybody enjoys well and found it useful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye now.